This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and the Starcom Radio Network. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 24/7, 365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Before I get to my next guest tonight, we're going to be having the debate of debates on Wednesday, September the 30th, from 8 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern. I just had to make sure that we were on the right time. What do they call it? Time zone, Craig? Yeah, time zone. Because we've had so many people call us and say, "Is that Pacific? Is it Central?" No, it's Eastern. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. Pacific. So that's going to be on Wednesday, September the 30th, from 8 p.m. Eastern until 10 p.m. Eastern, when the debate about the Billy Meyer case is going to be between the great-grandfather of ufology, the one and only Stanton Friedman, and Michael Horn, the North American representative for the Billy Meyer group. Now, once again, that is on Wednesday. All right, you're probably saying, well, Rob, okay, you said that. I just want to make sure everybody understands this. Wednesday, September the 30th. 8 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern. That's right here on the X-Zone Radio Show. And it will be heard around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and on the Starcom Radio Network. My guest this hour is JUDI VITALE. She is a real modern age practicing astrologer. Now, she's been reading the stars for more than 30 years. Her horoscopes have appeared in magazines and websites ringing from, 17.com to Redbook and Mary Claire. And she's written 2 books aimed to help people build better relationships with the wisdom of astrology. They are called Lovecasts and Baby Astrology. She is a certified consulting astrologer by the National Council for Geocosmic Research, Professional Astrologers Alliance, and is widely known as a corporate speaker specializing in teaching people how astrology can make a difference in their lives. She has an adult son and lives in Pittsburgh, PA, with her 2 mischievous Tibetan Terriers. Ooh. JUDI is also a clinical hypnotist, so she can help people change their behavior to lead a better life. She studies transpersonal psychology at the Wellness Institute. And JUDI, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, hello, Rob. Hello, everyone. How are you this evening?
We're just doing great. Thanks very much for joining us tonight, JUDI. Why did you want to become an astrologer?
Well, astrology is one of those things that you don't kind of say, gee, Mommy, I think I want to be an astrologer. Mm-hmm. It calls a person. And I felt very much called to it in the 1980s when I was going through a certain period of my life that was bringing me to my spiritual maturity. And so that was kind of it. I was there.
So tell me, how does astrology work? Like when we look at the stars, we look in the sky, and we say, oh my gosh, look at the beautiful stars. We're learning more about the vastness of space thanks to the Kepler telescope and as well as the ground-based telescopes. But how did the ancients, way back when, know everything about the star systems that they could actually put together what we call today astrology?
No one really knows the complete, total answer to that question, which leaves a lot more questions. However, one can assume that much of astrology's lore came from observation over time. So if they noticed a certain planet in a certain section of the sky at a certain time one year and something happened, they would look for the same thing to happen again. However, I've studied enough astrology in all over different parts of the planet to see that there's some common thread that may or may not be entirely human. So that's my belief.
So how does astrology work?
No one really knows the answer to that question either. Well, my answer to it is that we don't have the mathematics yet to explain it. However, what it is, the planets and the way that they move in the different sections of the sky pick up different attributes, and they affect our behavior on Earth and nature and everything.
Why would I, for example, doing what I do, want to use astrology?
Well, astrology is excellent for, number one, understanding your own life purpose and to see, that question of like, why am I here and what am I supposed to do? And sometimes we have two or more things that we think we're supposed to do, but astrology can make it clear as to which one is best for us. And then also for timing events and making plans and our relationships, all those things astrology can help with.
But if we don't know how astrology works, how do we know that the information that we're getting is true?
Experience and also making sure, you can get a good start by making sure you go to a reputable astrologer. There are many charlatans out there, but there are also many well-educated, ethical astrologers, and you just need to know where to find them.
And where do you find the ethical ones?
Yeah. Well, the National Council for Geocosmic Research, their website is geocosmic.org. Okay, that's one place to start. They have a list of people who've gone through their certification program. And, through references, people that you know and astrologers that you know, I certainly would be more than happy to help anybody find someone in their area or someone they could work with on the phone through Skype. No problem.
Okay, how can astrology help people with their personal relationships?
Well, each of us is born at a certain place and time, and there's a map that shows where the planets are or were when we were born. And then there are certain matches and certain compatibilities. For instance, two people who have the opposite sign, like Cancer and Capricorn, are attracted to one another. Because there's a certain completion in that. They bring to one another the things that the other does not have. So that's like a really good combination for a romantic relationship or a long-term partnership. But there are other ways of looking at it, the way the planets are arranged and between the two charts. How they align, like two people's Venus can be together, and that means that they just want to be together in a friendship way, and then it could grow into something else. And there are just a lot of different ways that you can tell.
Got you. So let me see how I can understand this. All right. So astrology would help two people find out whether they're compatible or not based upon the astrological information that has been accumulated over the years, right?
That's right, but
okay.
Let me make that simpler. Astrology can help two people to get along better by understanding the basic attributes that are in their planetary charts. So you may be attracted to someone and find out that there are ways that you get along and ways that you don't. Looking at the astrology of the people involved in the relationship will help to understand how you can work to get closer. And that's really how I handle the idea of how people are compatible. I believe everybody's compatible. It's just a matter of understanding one another.
Now, how does astrology help a person find his or her life path?
Well, there are things in the chart that give you information or give the astrologer information that can be passed on that talk about why, what you came. It sort of presuppose reincarnation in astrology. Mm-hmm. And we like to think that we're looking at this lifetime as opposed to old lifetimes or past lifetimes. Right. And to see why we came in at this place in time, what lessons we are supposed to learn. And you can read that by looking at the patterns in the chart.
So the patterns in the chart are basically the life imprint of the person?
I would say that would be a very good description, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now when you look at the stars, for example, more stars are being discovered, more moons are being discovered. Pluto was kicked away from being a planet into, I don't even know what the classification is anymore.
I don't know what they're going to call it, but in astrology, it's a planet, believe me.
So what happens as more and more planets and more moons are discovered? How does that affect the established ways that, you astrologers are reading the charts? Does anything change?
Well, I would look at it this way, Rob. It can add to it rather than it being something that invalidates what we already know. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that most of astrology is based on the planets you can see with the naked eye. So that goes up to Saturn. Once you get out to Uranus and Neptune and Pluto and beyond, we can't see those without the assistance of a telescope. So those planets add to the information that we have. The more the merrier in some respects, as long as people keep the priorities straight and realize that the planets that we can see with the naked eye are more important and closer to us.
I was just told by my producer we're having a very hard time with the Skype connection. So we're going to take a break and we're going to call you on your landline because you're fading in and out, and it's a horrible way.
Cell phone. Can you call a cell phone?
Well, we have no choice in this matter, do we?
Okay, I'm going to have to take it off of airplane mode first. So, okay, I'll do that.
All right, we'll call you in a little while. Exo Nation, my guest this hour is JUDI Vitale. Her website is www.readthestars.com. That's www.readthestars.com. We're going to take an early break, and we're going to give JUDI a call, and hopefully the connection will be better. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to the X Zone live Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, as well as the best of during the rest of the day and on weekends at www.xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here in the X Zone from our broadcast center, where? The beautiful city of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Jeff Gilson didn't go out looking for adventure, danger, or the answers to most of the controversial political intrigues of the past 30 years. But he found all three when he began investigating the mysterious death of his close friend, Margaret Thatcher's favorite speechwriter. Just an ordinary guy living in a small, sleepy suburb 20 miles outside of London, Jeff's questions provoked a powerful response on both sides of the Atlantic. He was shot at, warned off by the CIA, and formed a close bond with one of Israel's most notorious intelligence officers. Relive Jeff's gripping adventure in his fast-paced book, Maggie's Hammer. Peel away the layers of establishment deception and discover, as Jeff did, that his friend was an assassin with British intelligence, that Great Britain has been America's secret hitman for the past 30 years, and that Princess Diana was not the target in that Parisian tunnel. All of this and more when you visit www.maggieshammer.com and find the link to buying this explosive book online. More and more ordinary people feel they no longer have control of their lives. Jeff fought back. He asked the difficult questions. He set out to redesign his own destiny, and you can do the same using Maggie's Hammer as your guide. Don't waste a moment. Buy it today. Visit www.maggieshammer.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Hi, this is Ken Elliott. When I'm floating around the universe, I always try to tune in to Rob McConnell.
Hi ho there, Trinity Frog on Sesame Street. When I want to find out what's going on with UFOs or ghosts, I listen to the X Zone with Rob McConnell.
This is Les Corrigan from Target Internet Development. You're listening to Rob McConnell on the X Zone Radio Show.
This is John Hogue, prophecy scholar, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. JUDI VITALE is our special guest of this hour. www.readthestars.com. And JUDI, are you with us?
I am with you.
Oh, much better. Much better.
Good.
Skype is good when it works, but when it doesn't work, it is hell.
I know.
So let me see. All right. What kind of predictions do you make with astrology?
I do different kinds. I do what I call forecasting with individuals. I don't like to call it predictions because then they get like all nervous and everything. I just really want to tell people what kind of weather they have coming up, whether it's a good time for them to look for a job, find romance, etc. I like to make forecast type statements when it comes to world events. That's more exciting to me. And, I'll look at different situations. For instance, when we had the Arab Spring, we had so much stuff going on in the sky, and it was almost, if you saw like Uranus, the planet Uranus, which has to do with a revolution and excitement and just a general shaking up and unpredictability. And it moved into the sign of Aries, which is sort of like the bull in the china shop. So it was just a tremendous, huge release of energy. I woke up the morning that had occurred and turned on my TV, and there was the huge earthquake in Japan that led to the Fukushima tragedy. And then the Arab Spring erupted, and it was crazy. And I like to look at the horoscopes of countries and the horoscopes of the country's leaders, and get some inclination as to the way things are going to go in different parts of the world. And it takes a lot of research, and I wish that somebody would pay me millions of dollars to do it, but unfortunately they don't. But I do like to do it.
How does astrology affect us in terms of our life cycles?
That's a really interesting question, because you don't even have to know what time you were born or anything to experience this particular phenomenon. For instance, if you've ever noticed when you look at developmental psychology, people have things go off in childhood every 7 years. The seventh year is when they say it's the age of reason.
Right.
So in certain religions, they give them that privilege of different, the steps that we take, and they go to school. We lose our milk teeth and we get our permanent teeth, that sort of thing. 14, of course, is puberty. 21 is what we kind of call adulthood, but it isn't really until 28 to 30 when the planet Saturn makes its final return that we feel that complete sense of, okay, I've been through it all. But all those other intermediary stages were times when the planet Saturn was making a pattern with its original position in the person's birth chart. So 7, 14, 21, and it goes on throughout life. And, at age 41, who doesn't remember having that sensation of like, one more time, I'm going to wear a mini skirt, or I think I'll go out and buy that red sports car that I wanted, because it's just that last gasp at youth. And that's when Uranus opposes its own position in the birth chart. And these life cycles are fascinating and very educational in terms of understanding the lessons that we're supposed to take in at those times of life.
When anything goes wrong, I hear astrologers, when anything goes wrong with technical or electronics, I always hear the phrase Mercury's in retrograde.
Oh yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, what does that mean? Retrograde. What does that mean, and how does Mercury affect us like that?
Mercury is the planet of communication, and so it affects any process that involves taking something that doesn't have a way of conveying a message and putting it into a language where that message can be conveyed. So this, of course, is languages, but it also involves traffic. It involves computers, of course, television broadcasts. It's very interesting to see what happens during these periods of time. And astronomically, what's going on, it's so as though like we're all on trains going around the sun as planets, okay? And so have you ever been on a train and you know you're both going in the same direction, but one of the trains looks like it's going backwards because of the differential in the speed?
Yeah, I sure do.
You notice that? Okay. All right. Well, that's what happens in the sky, too, because of the relative speed of Mercury to our planet. It might appear for a certain period of time, like about 3 times each year for about 3 weeks, that it's going backwards. And when that happens, because Mercury is responsible for giving us the gift of communication, it sort of goes on vacation during that time period, and it makes it difficult. This is not a great time to sign a contract, for instance. And if you do have to sign a contract, you must like really read the fine print. It's not a good time to buy electronics. If you do so, you have to like triple check that, make sure that you have exactly what you want, and that, you have to just sort of hope that it isn't going to go wrong. It's really better to wait until after the retrograde if you can. And we have one coming up, Rob, September the 18th through October the 9th. So that's coming up really soon.
So does that mean for that entire time we can expect chaos in the communication industry?
Well, not chaos, glitches. There will be glitches. You'll notice them. I remember the first time my astrology teacher told me about this, and I was working at a huge bank in New York City, and I was there, a satellite communications trouble desk manager, okay? And I said, yeah, right, sure, this little planet's going to cause problems with my technology. I don't think so. Well, I walked in, and sure enough, all the lights were blinking that weren't supposed to be blinking, and there was a great big pile of trouble tickets, and I went, And that was just the first of many things that I've noticed over time, and I do believe it. It does happen. So it's important to pay attention to it. Same with, what sign the moon is in today. If you can, plan around it. That's what's really cool. You can work with it as well as, hide from it.
Gotcha.
But that's really the trick of astrology, is to use it to your advantage rather than becoming its victim.
What happens when planets move into different zodiac signs?
Well, you have to look at each planet as being a character. So, for instance, Mars is it is exactly what you think of when you think of the Roman god Mars, or the Greek god Ares, which is the warrior. And so this warrior goes from sign to sign. When he's in Aries, oh my goodness, look out! A lot of action, a lot of energy, and everything. And then if it goes into a sign that's a little softer, like Cancer, that aggressiveness is going to come out on the emotional side. So people will become, rather than physically active, they'll be emotionally volatile. So, as a planet goes into a different sign, it takes on the characteristics of it. You look at it as though it's visiting a certain house. So if Mars is visiting the moon's house, it kind of doesn't know what to do, because Mars is not really about feelings. It's just about impulse. And the moon is all about feelings, and so it just kind of gets all emo on everybody. So
Gotcha.
It's a very interesting time. Mm-hmm.
What are the major forces at work right now in the sky, and how will they affect world events?
Well, we're just finishing a very long period where we had two titans having a battle up there, Uranus and Pluto. They're kind of easing off. I think that they're still in play to some degree. And, that has been a period of a test of the time when Uranus and Pluto were together in the sky back in the 1960s. So all the changes that we made back in the 1960s have come to their testing point. And we're kind of looking at all of the things that we built there, the social system, the economy, all the things that we did that were, different about life. We just did a whole lot of different things back then. And now we're testing them and looking at them and saying, well, gee, is this what we really want? How can we tweak this to make it work to our advantage? And our economy, our economic system as well. We're probably still living on what we were doing back in the 1960s and sort of eroding. Also because the planet Pluto is in Capricorn, and that's Pluto erodes before it rebuilds something, and it's working on our institutions. That's when we had the crash of 2008. That was when Pluto went into Capricorn. So again, it was like one of those mornings I woke up and went, oh, so that's what Pluto and Capricorn means. But when we study, we look back in history and look at the times when these configurations occurred in the past. And really, we haven't had a configuration like this since the time just before the American and French Revolution.
When we look back at September the 11th, 2001, what did astrology show us for that day?
Well, it was an interesting moment. It really, I think this brings up a topic called the moon void of course. And when the moon is void of course, it means that whatever plan is laid down, it doesn't turn out exactly the way that you wanted it to. And what it means is that the moon is in one sign and getting ready to go into another, but it's done making aspects to the other planets. And so it just sort of is sitting there, and it's not making the connections that we need to make. And obviously, although enough destruction was done for my liking, the whole plot didn't really unfold because, there were a few misfires here and there. Certainly the plane that went down in Pennsylvania and such, wherever that one was supposed to go, didn't make it there. That sort of thing happened. But, during that period of time, rather than there being something that was especially noticeable, it was more like what was happening to the chart of the United States. But we also had Saturn and Pluto in opposition. And, that was about facing one's enemies and changing one's attitudes, whether the enemies are internal or external. Who knows what really happened.
Yeah.
But whatever did happen, it was about those energies. Saturn and Pluto are sort of like a volcano with a huge rock in them. And this surge of energy wants to come out, but there's something stopping it. So, it was almost like a resistance to the change that was about to come afterwards.
I would imagine so, yeah.
We're living through interesting times. But astrology also teaches us that we survived because we've lived through similar times before. So,
I just wonder how many times, though, after an event, people, astrologers, psychics, go and are able to fit the event to what they want to.
Oh, it happens all the time, and it's something that really just frustrates me no end.
I would imagine
especially
so.
when people take astrology and then try to make their political opinions validated by virtue of what the astrology says. It really is. I've even written in an academic article about the importance of objectivity in astrology. It's a very, very much a sore point with me. And you always have to take that objective view when you're working with astrology if you're going to be of service. If you want to use it for your own political ends, it's the same as being, like a a preacher who says that, the deity is going to come after you if you don't do what he or she says. So that's how I look at it.
Well, didn't President Reagan use astrology?
There was an astrologer who claims to have had the Reagans as clients, and I wish that she had not said that because she breached confidentiality. And that's also a no-no. If an astrologer, I have to tell you, my business fell off when that happened.
Really?
People started to think, well, if she's blabbing saying that the Reagans were her clients, I wonder if JUDI is walking around saying that I'm her client. It's a confidential conversation that one has with one's astrology if you're doing it seriously. It's it's akin to something like a lawyer or a psychologist. I will not talk about my clients except in very generic terms, and I will only use their charts and demonstrations if I have their full agreement. It's just not going to happen.
Can you tell how a celebrity, politician, or sports figure will perform based on his or her birthday?
Yeah. You can take guesses at it. You can certainly. I've predicted the Super Bowl successfully. That was fun. I'll do things like that for fun sometimes.
How about the 2016 election?
Of course you can. I think it's a little bit too early yet. I have certain thoughts about it, but I would really like a little bit more to take place before. For one thing, I don't like to make predictions further out than a year.
But if it's written in the stars and everything is written, shouldn't we be able to know with some certainty now?
There's something else involved in astrology, and
What's
that
that?
is free will.
Well, it seems that free will is involved in everything. I hear the same thing from psychics. I hear the same thing from numerologists. I hear the same thing from dowsers. I hear the same thing from astrologers. And it seems at times the phrase free will is used as a scapegoat.
An excuse.
Yeah.
As an excuse for not being correct.
Yeah.
Well, here's how I look at it, Rob. When if I tell you, there's a piano that's going to fall out of the 5th-story window if you walk down the street.
Right.
And I would, if I were you, cross the street. You can decide whether or not you're going to cross that street. Okay. But if you do cross it, then you'll avoid having the piano fall on your head.
Right.
If you don't cross it, there is some chance that it's going to fall on your head, but you have to be there at the exact point in time when it's going to happen. Okay. And also, when it comes to the political things, you and the situations that surround them, I mean, you just have to. There are ways that you can look at a person. They're all going to come out as like, oh yes, this person is a leader, and this person is this, and this person is that.
Right.
I was able to successfully predict that we would have President Obama back in like May of 2008.
Well,
when that wasn't a certainty yet.
Well,
not that I was able to do. So it was close enough. But right now it's too far out. Too far out.
So, all right. So if you're saying that it's too far out in 2016, then how can astrologers help chart a person's life if everything is so uncertain?
Well, I wouldn't make it. I often say that to people. They'll say, well, what about the year after that? And I'll say, let's see how you handle this year first. And then we can get, I don't know exactly what that means until I can get close enough to it to be able to see how the person has handled where they are. This is why it's so important to have that really close relationship with someone who's consulting with you. Because if you just rely on the stuff that you read in different places, you're going to get a generic kind of analysis that doesn't take into account where you are with your chart. When I see a person's chart, I might see somebody who's like a sage, but perhaps they haven't discovered that side of themselves yet. So it might be my job to kind of turn a little light on and say, this is a possibility for you. Because our charts are possibilities. They're not necessarily, set in stone, this is what we're going to do. It's like, this is what your possibilities are. It's just like looking at a map.
Yeah.
I can go to Hamilton or I can go to Olympia, Washington. It just depends on what road I take.
So why would a person go to an astrologer then?
Well, a person would go to an astrologer to find out more about where they're headed and what, I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen. I might tell you, this is not a good year to look for a job because you need to learn some lessons where you are. The opportunities are going to be coming up maybe more in 6 months or 8 months, and to keep your ear to the ground, the experience that you're getting now is going to help you get an even better position at that point in time. And it keeps people focused on their, the idea that there is a purpose for them and that they're, that they're staying on a certain path. But, I'm not going to be able to tell you where you're going to be 10 years from now necessarily. I might be able to tell you that there's a possibility that you will need to take better care of your health due to something that I see at a certain point in your life. But I can't say exactly what's going to happen with it because maybe you'll go and have it circumvented in the meantime. And then that situation might manifest as, sometimes different areas of the chart have different meanings. Or the same area of the chart has different meanings. The same area of the chart that talks about health talks about your domestic pets. So maybe it's your dog that's going to have the health problem. So you have to wait till you get, those are the possibilities. And so if you take care of your health, then, maybe it'll just be a glitch. If you don't take care of your health, then, so the universe will remind you that it would have been a good idea for you to do so.
Earlier today, I had my producer go down to the local newsstand, and we picked 6 newspapers up that had horoscopes in them. Each one was different.
Wow, there are that many left.
Each one was different. So so once again, if people are supposed to take astrology seriously, wouldn't wait a sec? Hold on here. Wouldn't those 6 horoscopes be the same?
I don't know who wrote them, and you don't know who wrote them. It might even have a person's name on it, and it could be that person didn't write it. I have written horoscopes, and I did it thinking that, well, if someone is going to do this, I would rather that it was I to do it than somebody who didn't know what they were doing. But it isn't my favorite thing to do because of the way that people take it. And they don't, and I'm hoping when I do it that I'm planting a seed in someone so that they will look further into themselves, whether it's with me or with another astrologer or some other way of discovering who they are in a spiritual way. But, there are some horoscopes that are written by people who just sit and write headlines. There are some horoscopes that are written by astrologers who don't care what they write, and there are others that are written with an astrologer's name on it, and some copywriter just makes something up. So you don't know. That's the thing. And that's why it's good to have somebody who's reliable and trustworthy. Astrology is very powerful if it's used correctly. It's when it's abused that it has to be taken in context. If, people want to use it for their entertainment, then that's one thing. But, to take a horoscope seriously, look at me, though. When I was a child, that's how I got interested in astrology, was I began to read horoscopes. And I started to see, there are little inconsistencies. Well, why are there so many inconsistencies? Because can you imagine how nuanced each map of somebody's life is? Everybody's so different. Yeah. There's so many combinations. So that's why it's good to have your individual workup done so people can see what's going on.
Plus, I understand there are a number of different methods of doing horoscope charts or astrological charts.
There are different schools of astrology, yes. And something that I have found is that 2 different astrologers or more using different schools of astrology might come up with information that's quite similar. It's just that they have a different way of coming up with it. That's what I'm saying earlier. I was talking about how, there's astrology in every part of the planet, in every culture.
You said might come up.
Are often similar.
You said might. Once again, if astrology was that correct, wouldn't it be more than just might be the same? Wouldn't it be they are the same? Or does it does it depend on the astrologer themselves and what they want to inflect into their astrological readings?
Different schools of astrology put emphasis on different technique and different things. For instance, Western astrology puts an emphasis more or less on the person's makeup and what happens to the person as they go through life.
Right.
Chinese astrology might put more of an emphasis on the person's constitution and their health and their life cycles. Vedic astrology or Indian astrology puts more, and they're definitely more attuned toward different cycles according to the length of the planetary periods and everything. So theirs is a much more, they do a lot of compatibility as well. So each different school of astrology is oriented toward a different way of looking at the person that they're working for. There's a school of astrology called Uranian astrology, which I practice, and it has to do with the midpoints and the points in between the planets and hypothetical bodies. And, you know, these planets that they're discovering out beyond Pluto might be these hypothetical bodies that were tracked back in the first part of the 20th century. But in any event, this is a very event-oriented kind of astrology, and also one that it is much more detailed about talking about a person's proclivities, their problems, the things that they're going to have to deal with in a certain lifetime.
So how is the consumer supposed to know which is the best system of astrology for them?
I would say this, for them to interview with different astrologers, read about the different kind of astrologies if that's possible. But more important than anything, Rob, this is an intuitive science. The person that's working with you, and that's why I'm using words like may and might, I'm going to tell my client what I am told by my intuition they need to know. Okay? It might not be even what they ask to know necessarily. Sometimes it is.
Right.
And I certainly will try to focus on that. But I'm using my intuition when I use this. And I would advise somebody as a client to use their intuition. And it would be no surprise to me that the people who come to me are going to have things in their chart that relate to mine, because that means that I can relate to them and they can pick up from me and I can pick up from them. You said match that way.
You said intuitive science, and in my opinion, that's an oxymoron, because intuition and science don't seem to go hand in hand. Because if it was a science, it could be replicated time and time and time again, where intuition can't.
Experimental science could be, yes. Yeah, but you know, it's a study of something. It's a study of stars, and in fact, it used to be that astrology and astronomy were taught in the same school, you know, like under the same kind of teaching, and then they took in the Renaissance times. So it's just the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. I just looked up the definition of science. So that's what I mean by that. It's an observational thing. I'm observing. Because I studied, and I know what my books told me certain things to me, that just like my teacher showed me when she taught me, the more clients that I have, the more I can observe what happens to a person when they go through a certain combination of planetary influences.
But if we're all different, how can you apply that methodology to it?
Well, because we're all different, but everybody has a position where the sun was when they were born, and if they have a transit such as Saturn coming in conjunction with the sun, there are certain things that they're going to have in common with other people who had Saturn coming to their sun, but it's going to be at a different time. It's going to be in a different combination because there may be other planets that are making aspects to it. And in that way, the diversity comes through. But it's like looking at a palette of colors, and you have primary colors that everybody sort of shares, and then there's this whole palette of every color in between. And that's how diverse each of us is. But there are certain commonalities that make blue, blue, and red, red. And, those things are in common. And so to observe those, yes, but, then I'm going to see that if the person has, their sun is in a very strong sign, and Saturn is not very strong in their chart, and, they don't have a way of managing the Saturn, it's going to be more difficult for them than if they can manage the Saturn, or they're familiar with the energy, or it feels good to them in their regular chart, in their own being. So that's the other thing. How does the person manage the planetary energy? It's very nuanced, and it is esoteric, and it is definitely intuitive. There's intuition at play. Too many people think, oh, well, it's exactly the fact. Well, the thing about getting, for instance, a printed astrology report, and I've written those, okay? And I always say to the people that I wrote them for, this really isn't possible to get it without any contradictions, because you need a human being to synthesize and talk about what those contradictions mean. So one thing you have might make you strong and forthright, and another one might make you shy and reserved. So how does the person reconcile those two things? That's what the astrologer helps the person to do. And that's the other thing. The astrologer doesn't do it. They help the person to do it.
But like I was saying, in my opinion, it would also depend on the astrologer and their outlook on life and their outlook on relationships. And I find this can be a little bit dangerous when it comes to a person using any form of divination or any science to try and relate messages that they're perceiving based on data, and then they start interpreting that data as it has affected their life.
Oh, well, that's something that, if that's why I say it's so important to go to an astrologer who's been, really trained in the right way, because, that's a real danger. Oh, my friend just picked up an astrology book and now he or she's going to read my chart. That's scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if they say things that are, very absolute and such. And, a good astrology teacher is going to tell the student that that's not a good thing for them to do until they're ready.
How has the internet affected the astrology business?
Well, it helps it and it harms it. It helps it in that over the internet, I can get in touch with a lot more people. And I can, I put out a weekly video on my YouTube channel. And I'm able to say, okay, so today the moon's in Aquarius and, the sun is in Virgo. So you're going to think people are going to be in a more industrious mood. And, Thursday is a really good day to have a discussion because people will have a broad-minded view because of Aquarius, but they might get a little stubborn because Aquarius can be stubborn, and I can talk to people. I can talk to whoever wants to watch my video. That's great. And, I can publish things and get my word out that I'm available for their consultation.
So it's a great marketing tool.
It's a great marketing tool, but in terms of it increasing the value of astrology, the only way I can see that is that it gives me access to some teachers that I might not be able to. I still study, so, because I could consider myself a lifelong learner.
Right.
And it gives me access, say, if I want to hear Robert Hand's latest seminar, and he lives out in Las Vegas, and I live in Pennsylvania now, and he used to come through New York, and I used to live there, and I used to see him a lot more. And now I can listen. I can attend his webinar if I want to over the web. But in terms of the quality of what's out there on the internet, not so great. It's more of what you experienced with the newspapers, where you go out and you look at 6 different websites, and the daily horoscopes, they're all going to say something different, or even a monthly one. Again, based on the emphasis and who writes it.
The way I look at it is that it's a lot like a psychic reading. I say many times, I used to do the show from Psychic Fairs, and I'd watch the person go from psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic, and I could always tell when that person hears what they want to hear because they don't go to any other psychic. So
and if they don't, they keep searching.
Exactly, right? And it's it's the same, I would imagine, with people who are reading the newspaper horoscopes. They can inject things that happen to them during the day or the days in the past when they read let's say it's Monday and they read Saturday's horoscope. And they say, "Oh, see, look, there it is. This is why it happened."
Yep.
It's rather amusing at times, but it's very sad at other times.
And I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And that's why I'm saying that if someone really wants to understand themselves through astrology, it's very important that they find someone who's qualified to do it and who's trustworthy and ethical.
We've got a few minutes left. I'd just like to touch on your clinical hypnosis.
Okay.
How does hypnosis work with astrology, or are these two separate hats you wear?
Well, they're not actually. I do, and if somebody wanted to have hypnosis without astrology, I certainly would do that, but it helps with my astrology clients because say that we're talking about someone and they're trying to overcome, a difficulty completing their business task. They're like, they're following through on opportunities and like, well, what's the matter? They'll say, what does my chart say is the matter with me? And I'll look and I'll say, well, tell me about your relationship with your sibling. And they'll go like, and you'll see them freeze, right?
Right.
And then you might discover that when they think about it, that they had a brother or sister that gave them a lot of trouble. So we go into the hypnosis session if they want to do that. I always say it doesn't have to be me, but I think that you could benefit from this. And I have had people, then go into the hypnosis session, and we regress back to the point in time where a bad message might have got to them, like the sibling rivalry kind of stuff. The bigger sibling takes the smaller sibling and holds them down and tells them they're stupid, worthless, and they'll never be worth anything. Well, a 4-year-old kid will believe that, and that tape goes in there, and they don't realize that, but 40 years later, they're standing before a boss that reminds them of their older sibling, and they're hearing that message again. So they need to go back and process the emotion from that, the anger, the fear, whatever it is, get it out of the part of their brain where it doesn't have words, and bring it to where it can be spoken about and experienced, and then they can discharge their emotion safely within the session, and then reframe it. Well, what message did you get back then? Well, that I was worthless and would never amount to anything.
Gotcha.
Well, what's the truth? The truth is that I'm a good person and that I can do exactly everything that my capabilities.
Judy, we've got to say so long for tonight. Our time has just ended. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Exo Nation,
well,
if you'd like to contact Judy Vitale, her website is www.readthestars.com. Real astrology in good old plain English. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.